All right, so moving on, Tommy Jewell,
Present.
Diane Layden,
Present.
Debbie Stronging,
Present.
Debbie Dodge,
Present.
Diane Dossel, Diane Dossel,
I'm seeing Diane raise her hand on my screen, but I'm not hearing her.
okay, and if you want to talk in the chat, just because I won't be able to see any hands up, if you have anything, I have the chat open. I'm not sure what's going on, but I do see her name too. Thank you. I see it in the chat. Michael Wismer.
I'm present.
Thank you. Yeah, and if you just have anything that you need, raise your hand or anything, just go ahead and do it in the chat, just because I still can't get the video to work on my end. But yeah, it looks like we have everyone here in attendance today. Digital.
Thank you, Crystal. As I have indicated, the meeting is called to order. I think it's approximately 11:05. And I will note that we have a quorum, and we'll proceed then to the consent agenda. On that agenda is approval of minutes for November 12, 2021. Is there a motion to approve?
I move that we approve the minutes of the SOARB board meeting of November 12th, 2021.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Debbie Strongin, I second.
Okay, I think I saw Debbie Strongin first, so she may be recorded as the second. Any need for discussion? Otherwise, those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Hearing none, the minutes from the November 12, 2021 meeting are approved. Of course, this meeting is dedicated to our finalization of the SOARB annual report. As I indicated at the last minute, though, we will always have on our agenda room for a sheriff's office comment as well as public comment. Is there a representative of the sheriff's office who wishes to be heard?
I don't see anyone
Okay.
here.
Hearing none, we'll move on to item 5, the public comment. Are there members of the community, of the public, who wish to be heard? Did we have anybody sign up, Crystal?
No, I didn't have anyone sign up or send me any emails.
Okay, and certainly if there's somebody on, they're certainly welcomed at this point in the agenda to make comment. Hearing none, we'll move on. As I indicated, the primary item of business is contained in item 6, board member finalization of the SOARB annual report for the county commission. I have certainly had discussion with Debbie Strongin, and I know Debbie Dodge had input and others gave input, and you all have been provided with what purports to be the final draft. And I'm going to turn it over to committee. Debbie Strongin, would you take the chair for purposes of discussion of the report, please?
Sure. And I wanted to just preface this by saying that, in accordance with our procedures that we adopted, thanks to Michael Wismer, we did submit a copy of the proposed advice to the sheriff's office for comment, and we have not received any comment one way or the other on those items. So if somebody from the sheriff's office joins us at a later time, we can certainly give them the opportunity to make any comments. But as of now, the sheriff's office has gotten a notice and has not commented.
And so that I'm clear, Madam Chair, the one item that they did comment on, I think we got a letter back from the undersheriff. I think it was regarding the multi-agency task force, and certainly that topic appears to be presently ripe.
That's correct. And I actually, I had, Crystal sent out yesterday to everybody a copy of the multi-agency task force memo of agreement between, or it's among the county, the sheriff's office, and APD, as far as forming a multi-agency task force to investigate certain types of situations, including officer-involved shootings. So I don't know if everybody's had an opportunity to take a look at that, but basically it forms a multi-agency task force, but as a general rule, the agency whose employee is involved in the incident takes the lead. So there's still the issue of the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office taking the lead in an investigation of a sheriff's office involved shooting.
As well as every other police.
Exactly. I just didn't think in the annual report, since we're just concerned with Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office, I didn't think it was appropriate to make a suggestion beyond that. But I did make a couple of small revisions to two provisions of the report that I just sent to Crystal this morning. Crystal, I don't know if you've had an opportunity to find those. It's a one-page thing that just amends two sections of the report. Crystal,
Oh, yeah.
were you able to? You did?
Yeah, I have it because you said you wanted to possibly share it today. Did you want me to put it up on the screen?
I'm not sure if maybe we should just go through this in order, and when we get to those provisions, we can just put up on the screen the small revisions to two paragraphs to incorporate this memo of understanding into our report. So I don't know. My first comment is just I emailed with Daniel Roberson this morning, and he said we do not all need to sign the annual report. So logistically, it might be simpler if only the chair signs it. Then we don't have to figure out a way for everyone to get together and sign. So is there anyone who doesn't agree with that?
I would like to just make one modification to that, and that is if,
Sure.
This is Michael, if we vote on the report today, part of the motion to approve the report would be a sentence that authorizes the chair to sign for all of us, if that would be okay with the chair.
Certainly, that's fine with me. Why I had so much input, Debbie, I hesitate to say something. If we're at an appropriate time, though, I want to thank you for all your work on this report. The paragraph that thanks the undersheriffs for their participation causes me pause, because I'm concerned that perhaps it does not accurately reflect the position of the sheriff's office regarding the SOARB. And I wonder if we might alter that paragraph to indicate that the sheriff did not personally participate, but then thank the undersheriffs and Captain what is it?
Captain Huffmeyer.
Huffmeyer for their participation.
Okay, this is Debbie Strong, and we could certainly do that just in the, let's see, after the, this is in the chair's forward, so it's
Yes.
page 1. And
Yes.
in the paragraph below the numbers where it says the members of SOARB also want to thank the BCSO, which sent representatives to nearly every SOARB meeting. And then it goes on, in particular, we could say, although the Sheriff Gonzalez himself did not participate, we we do appreciate, we want to express appreciation for the assistance of Under Sheriffs Covington and Corin and
Yeah, I think if you just start that paragraph as you did, although Sheriff Gonzalez did not personally participate,
okay.
and the rest is fine with me. And others may want to chime in on that. I don't know. I just felt like you know, we're giving the impression that we had the complete cooperation of the sheriff's office, and certainly we're thankful to those members that participated. But it was certainly a give and take relationship, and so I don't want the county commission to get the impression that the sheriff's office was all in, and so others are free to correct me if my impression is wrong.
This is Debbie Strongen. I'm thinking maybe we could say something about, you know, leave the sentence we have about answered our questions with patience and good grace, despite some, I don't know, reluctance or hesitation in accepting the existence of SOARB or the jurisdiction of SOARB.
I don't know that they really expressed that, or is that the feeling that we're getting? Or, I mean, they expressed it one time, but I think just saying that the sheriff didn't participate is better.
And it looks like the Under Sheriff Larry Corin is also on the line with his hand up.
Okay.
If I could, Chair, just offer my humble 2 cents, is that maybe in terms of cooperation, participation, and attendance of the SOARB meetings, keep in mind that the under sheriff and the captain, anybody who's directed to come to these meetings is representing the sheriff in his office as well, and that I did review. Yeah, thank you for sending me the document, but I did review it, and I didn't see any specifics as far as the board's attendance and their participation, and so maybe just a statement of fact as far as how many meetings were held and who attended each meeting would be sufficient, rather than getting into the details of levels of participation. That's all I had to say. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Oh, Under Sheriff, I think I haven't sent you yet the full draft report, just because we haven't finalized it yet. But in here, we just say at least one and often 2 representatives of the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office have attended all but 2 regular SOARB meetings. So I'm not sure if that answers the answers your point.
And I appreciate that. I didn't really have a point other than to state that if attendance is going to be taken, that I'd recommend the attendance of the board be cited as well. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, it's Debbie Strongen. I'm just not 100% sure I understand that you want to say how many, you would like this report to specify how many board members attended each meeting?
Yes, ma'am.
We could certainly say that we never operated without a quorum. I'm not sure, but you're requesting that we specify how many actual board members were at each meeting?
I'm not requesting anything, ma'am. I'm pointing out that in terms of attendance of these meetings, that the only ones who are actually required is the board itself and the members of it, not the sheriff is not a required member, are required to attend, but yet the draft that I did see did not indicate any attendance records of the board.
Madam Chair, might I comment?
Yes, yes.
Certainly, I appreciate the undersheriff's comments, but I think that it is probably not relevant to the discussion that we're having. This is not a discussion about attendance, rather a discussion about the sheriff's office participation. And while I certainly appreciate that at most of the SOARB meetings, the sheriff was represented through the undersheriff, I wouldn't want the commission to get the impression that the sheriff personally endorsed this process. In fact, you all could correct me, but I believe that they were a bit recalcitrant to the whole SOARB effort. But certainly, the sheriff was represented by the undersheriffs, Captain Huffmeyer, and others who have been very good about giving us information. So that's my point in wanting to include something that gives a better characterization of the relationship that we have. Who attended the meetings from the board is certainly reflected in minutes. And so, I mean, if the board wants to go back and reference each of the minutes and determine who was there, this is not about attendance in my mind, though. So I wanted to say that.
It might be helpful if Crystal could put up on the board the pages, each page of the document that we're talking about, because that way Under Sheriff Corrin and anyone else who's on here who hasn't seen what we're talking about can get a better sense of the context. So I don't know, Crystal, if you can do that. This is page 1, the foreword to the report.
Oh, yeah, let me go ahead. Sorry, now that I stopped sharing my screen, I finally get to see you guys. I don't know what I did. Okay.
And Madam
Let's,
Chair-
And while Crystal is putting this up, I want to praise her as highly as praise can be, because she did such an excellent job of putting this whole report together in a way that looks professional and hangs together. And I absolutely could not have done this without her. So thank you again, Crystal.
no problem. Did you
Hello.
want did you want the red line report up? Or did
No,
you want
just
final?
the final one that just says final. That's the whole document.
Okay, I'll go ahead and share that one.
While she's doing that, Madam Chair, this is Michael. I'd like to make a comment as well. In relative to our discussion. First of all, I think we need to thank both Crystal and Ms. Drummond for putting this together. It's really well done. I would also like to suggest that we revert back to the language we spoke about a few minutes ago, which is, although the Sheriff Gonzalez did not participate, and then go on with the accurate representation from the undersheriffs. And my point is that when the undersheriffs participate, they are part of the command and do represent the sheriff. So I personally am happy with the language that was originally discussed that states, although Sheriff Gonzalez did not attend, and then continue on with what did happen. So thank you.
Okay, well, I think we'll put, although Sheriff Gonzalez did not personally attend, we want to express our appreciation for the attendance of the undersheriffs and Captain Huffmeyer. And I think that will address everyone's concerns. And what I'll do as soon as I can after this meeting, or even, I don't know if I have the technical ability to do it while we're on this call, but I can make these changes very quickly and send it out to everybody just to make sure. And then you can each let me know individually, but not to the whole group, that, if you're okay with them or if you have a problem. And I did just want to, while Under Sheriff Corrin is here, I wanted to just make sure that the undersheriff has an opportunity, if he wants, to comment on the provisions that I sent, which were I extracted out the recommendations portion of this report. I'm not sure if Undersheriff Corin can hear me.
Yeah, no, I heard you, ma'am, and no, I don't have any comment. I believe I sent you over some additional information on
Yes.
one of your recommendations.
Yes.
And
And actually, we're
hope
going
that
to be
helps.
talking. Yes, oh, it was very helpful. And in fact, we're going to probably be making some changes to the document based on the information you sent. So thank you for that. All right, does anybody have any comments up to this point?
Madam Chair, is it going to be the process that you go section by section? Are you looking for a motion at this point?
To just approve it?
With the changes that we've made so far, I think I'm happy.
Okay, there is just, there are two, unless anybody has any, does anybody have any comments?
I want to hear how you've changed the two sections, because I think that's important.
Okay.
Yeah.
Crystal, can you put up that one page that I sent you, which is
From this morning?
it changes, yeah, from this morning. It's a change to section, let's see, 3. It's Roman 3G little I, officer involved shootings.
Okay.
So this is
Page 7.
Page 7?
yeah.
Oh, well, this one I was set separately, but yeah, this is the section, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's the section, and it's
Sandwich,
page 5
ice,
of my version.
straw, vinegar.
Thank you, honey.
See you in a couple hours.
Sorry, I had to mute someone.
Oh, okay, I think I needed to mute.
Okay, so you could just read through it, but I thought I had sent a red line of it, but it's not showing up that way. But I just revised it to include a reference to the memorandum of agreement that Under Sheriff Corin sent me yesterday, and a little bit more of an explanation of what the multi-agency task force consists of.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was important because, I mean, that MOU, APD's they're the lead investigation on their shootings. The state police are lead. I mean, it's following BCSO is no different than any other law enforcement agency.
Exactly. I mean, this is Debbie Strong, and you're correct. And I think I have in here that this multi-agency investigative process is consistent with law enforcement practices in other jurisdictions, both within and outside New Mexico. So that's
Right.
in here. But since we have received comments from Ms. Maestas, among other people, expressing concerns about BCSO being the lead investigator in BCSO shootings, where we wanted to, we thought it was important to raise this concern it's not a criticism at all. It's just a statement of what the situation is. And then later on, the next section that's being revised is where we're making, and that's section Roman 4B little I. That's in the section of recommendations to the county commission. And again, we're saying that we know that this is consistent with other law enforcement agencies' practices, but we have a concern because of the possible appearance of a conflict of interest. So maybe you can just read through that second section as well and see if anyone has any changes to that.
Yeah, and we just, I mean, I don't think that we want BCSO to think we're picking on them, but it's just, if we were, we'd be saying the same thing about APD or the New Mexico State Police or whatever, if we were on that kind of board.
Exactly. And I mean, does anyone think we need to put in some clarifying language on that, that we're limiting our comments to BCSO because we are, you know, a BCSO related board?
Yeah, maybe
Or-
so. Maybe that'd be good.
Okay. So,
Can I be heard?
sorry,
Yeah.
Diane, yeah.
Are we saying as a board that we think that there's a conflict, or I'm sorry, that we think there's some sort of conflict if BCSO is lead on officer involved shootings, even though there's a multi-agency task force? Or is this an opinion?
This is saying that there is, we have a concern that there is a possible appearance of a conflict of interest, not that there is actually a conflict, but in terms of public confidence, you know, we received comments questioning BSCO being the lead investigator, even though there was a multi-task force investigation.
Okay,
So
It's
it's not intended as a criticism. It's a comment on, this is the situation. This is consistent with practices in other jurisdictions inside and outside New Mexico, but we're still raising it as a concern.
Okay,
Madam
it's-
Chair.
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. Madam Chair Diane, I want to say in my mind, it is definitely a criticism, and we're only in a position to criticize BCSO. Now, their practice is certainly well in compliance with their MOA and apparently consistent with what goes on in other jurisdictions. But at a minimum, them taking the lead in investigating the shootings of a deputy in their department gives the appearance of a conflict. They may be able to do so dispassionately, but if they are leading the investigation, the public is left to wonder whether there indeed is a conflict.
I understand. I just because I do have some familiarity on the APD side of multi-agency task force and the investigations itself, to me, it makes sense that they would take lead because, you know, their report writing wise, investigative wise, you know, it does make sense to me that they would take lead because of the systems that they use. It is generated through them, and that's why the multi-agency task force exists, because there's an outside representative from each agency that is paired up with each deputy through the entire process. And I don't know if it's appropriate to state here, but you know, maybe it's a matter of us understanding more what lead investigative means, because I think that, you know, personally, there's no problem with the way that it is investigated, just because of how it is set up through multi-agency. But that's just my opinion, you know, and just because I do have some familiarity with the process, it does make sense to me that they would be the lead just administratively and the way the process is set up.
Diane, I would agree with you. After going through the Citizens Academy, we did learn more about how that whole process works. I think that's another reason why the board needs to make themselves more familiar with actual what's going on. All we know is what you hear from the media, and the media automatically puts them, you know, in that position, I think, too, of like, oh, they're investigating themselves. So I don't know. I have mixed emotions about what to say in this section.
Madam Chair,
Uh,
may I be heard quickly?
Yes,
It is not just based on the media, Debbie. We had testimony from a member of the public, Ms. Maestas,
Right.
about her experience. So we had firsthand testimony. And I think lead is defined in the MOA. So I think we have an idea of what lead means. And I think all I'm trying to do is give sensitivity to the appearance of that to someone in the public. Maybe the reality of it, and I've had some involvement in that process as well for APD. Maybe knowing from the inside what's involved in that process is helpful, but to members of the public, particularly those who are involved, there is an intimidation factor. If I've got to give an interview to a member of the agency who is responsible for shooting my loved one. And so that's, I think, what we're trying to express.
I understand, and I just want to say that respectfully, Chair, that with this being said, I don't think that all of the members, and I'm just going to speak for myself on this one, has a problem with the current process that's set in place, because to me, it does make sense that that BCSO would take lead, again, administratively, and because of the protocol that's set in place, the system that is used as far as like the software, how the report is generated and so on. So I'm just saying, I think across the board, me personally, I don't have an issue with it, but I do understand what you're saying, that we're trying to be aware and sensitive to the community's needs. And that's just my 2 cents.
I'm not sure if maybe we can include some additional language that might give people more comfort with these provisions, to make it very clear that we are not, this comment is directed at BCSO because that's what our jurisdiction is, but it's not, the concern is not limited to BCSO, that this is a widely used practice, and while there may in fact be no conflict of interest, the appearance of a conflict to the public is a real risk.
I think
So-
maybe just the definition of multi-agency task force, I'm sure it's understood somewhere in this document and defined. I just want the public to be aware that, that there's more meaning to it than just the words of multi-agency task force, that people do understand that there are several impartial parties that take place in the investigation. And maybe that could just be highlighted more, because, without any law enforcement experience, if I saw the verbiage of multi-agency task force, I don't know that I would exactly understand what that meant in its totality. So I think if the community was more aware what that fully entailed, they would understand, oh, okay, so there are other people that, take part in this process that do make it a fair process, a fair investigation.
Okay, I think I see Diane Layden's hand up.
I'm not quite sure how to say this. Our community is high for police shootings, for police fatalities. And during the period when APD was under scrutiny from 2010 to 2014 for the high number of fatalities, there were real questions about the fairness of the process. And this also came up when Elaine Maestas spoke. I'm a little more skeptical of the fairness of the process. I don't know that it makes any difference which law enforcement agency is taking the lead. I'm not sure it makes a difference, but that BCSO takes the lead in its own investigations and clears its deputies. That's the issue, is that almost routinely deputies are cleared of responsibility. I think we've only had one or more cases that have gone to court. The James Boyd case went to court. I just need to say I have some skepticism about the fairness of law enforcement agencies investigating their own cases. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I could again, I
Certainly.
noticed that you did include the full text of the MOA in the appendix. So
Exactly.
I think, Diane, if the commission or members of the public wanted to get a definition of multi-agency task force, it is certainly there for them. I don't know that this gives a wrong impression. And I think I want to back up a step before Dr. Layden and say, I mean, I'm not trying to be skeptical about the process. I'm trying to give a window from the public into how it perceives that there is a conflict with this process. And if it is difficult, I think, from the inside to see that. I think that we all think that we are fair, but unless there are certain things there that set us aside, that give us a step away from the process, the appearance of it is that we are involved and that there is not fairness. So that's what I'm trying to say.
I can't figure out how to raise my hand on this thing, but I do think in the recommendations, we're saying that the county commission should consider legislative measures to be taken to mandate that any investigation, you know, I don't know that we should be asking the county commission to take legislative measures on this. They've got an MO, you know, a memo of understanding, or a memo of agreement.
I'm
You
not
see what
sure
I'm
why we
saying?
shouldn't. This is Debbie Strong, and I understand what you're saying, but I don't understand why it wouldn't be appropriate for us to give a recommendation on legislation to the county commission, since that's, I mean, we are authorized under the ordinance that created SOARB to give advice and recommendations to both BCSO and the county commission.
I don't agree, but I personally don't think that we should be asking them, the county commission, to take this to the legislature. I guess that's what I'm saying. So I'm not in agreement with that.
Okay, well, our procedure allows anybody who doesn't agree to have their dissent noted. So I
Okay.
can certainly add to this piece of advice that you don't agree with it. And if anyone, I mean, maybe we need to take a vote on anybody else who doesn't agree with giving this advice to the legislature, to the county commission.
I mean, we're saying that we think there may be an appearance of a conflict of interest, but to ask them to take it to the change things, I mean, I just don't know about that.
Well, what would you, I mean, if we think that there's a problem with a public perception, not with an actual conflict of interest perhaps, but with general public perception that investigating oneself is not, you know, is a possible conflict of interest, then how else can that be changed? There's no agency that has jurisdiction to tell the sheriff what to do.
No, but I mean, how do you change what the appearance is? I mean,
By not allowing the agency that has by not allowing the agency that employs the shooter to be the agency with the primary investigative responsibility.
But I don't agree with that. So I would not recommend that they not be that.
Okay, well, if you're registering your disagreement with this recommendation, that, you know, I can add that to this, by the way, this provision, it's a little bit amended to add the provisions of the MOA, but it's been in the annual report for at least the last 3 drafts. But if you disagree with it, I'll just put in a sentence indicating your disagreement. And I'm just asking if anybody else has a similar disagreement or a disagreement for any other reason with this provision.
This is Diane Dosal. I guess I would be in somewhat agreement with Debbie Dodge as well, because I think if all of the board members, and I don't mean to, this might sound worse than what I actually intend for it to mean, totally understood the investigation and the process that happens when involving multi-agency task force, if it was fully understood, and, you know, being in the Citizen Academy, and then just, you know, as a law enforcement officer, you understand those things, those details, and why, you know, it isn't necessarily a bad thing for that agency to be lead. I think about, you know, APD as a larger agency that has probably more officer involved shootings. Would we then be saying that other agencies are responsible for taking over those investigations as well, when we have a smaller agency that doesn't have as many officer involved shootings? And then it just seems like it's not a good comparison, you know, when you have larger agencies and smaller agencies that are doing these investigations. I just again echo that I don't have an issue with the agency taking lead, because there are many checks and balances in the process due to other departments and personnel being involved to make those checks and balances part of that system. But I just am in some agreement with Debbie Dodge as well.
All right, let me just pose this question. If you hired a lawyer who you believe committed malpractice in representing you, and you brought a complaint about that lawyer to the Bar Association, and the Bar Association appointed, you know, several experts who are members of the Bar Association to investigate this claim, and the lead investigator was the lead partner of the firm that your lawyer was from, would you have confidence in that investigation, or would you have hesitation whether or not that person in fact was going to be impartial or not? Would it have the appearance to you of not being a fair investigation?
I think for now, to save some time, because it's hard when we don't get to meet in person and so on, that it should just be noted what Debbie and myself have stated, you know, as somewhere, maybe in the minutes, or, you know, at some side notes for this document. And that's all I would simply say. I mean, if we were to get into further discussion, I think we could be here for quite a long time. And I don't know that this is the appropriate meeting for that. But that's it. I just wanted to say, you know, I don't know that we all agree with the process and what we're technically recommending or noticing. Some of us we're just not all on the same page, and that's okay. That's what makes it,
Right.
you know,
But,
work.
but we do have a process where you can register your disagreement. And so I think that it would be helpful to me if you would both send me, you know, a 1-sentence dissent from this particular recommendation, and I will add that to the report.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'll do that.
So, okay. I mean, it doesn't have to be long or anything, and I will add it as a subsection of this report.
Madam Chair, this is Michael.
Yes.
I am also in disagreement, and I'll send my comment to you as well. I note that in the MOA, it says that the lead agency will compile the necessary reports and documents and submit them to the district attorney's office for who is jurisdictional authority over the event. And I believe that is a check and balance. I also am concerned about the fact that we are singling out BCSO after both the state police and APD and the attorneys for all the above agencies have agreed to this MOU, which I have grave concern with. So I too do not think we should ask them to seek legislation to change this. I think the path forward is perhaps we should reserve judgment and maybe listen to some of the results of investigations of the multi-agency task force before we make any kind of recommendation to change this MOU. And that's my comments, and I'll put them in writing and send it to you because I don't want to delay this any longer.
Well, this may delay it longer only because we now have only 6 people on this committee and 3 are dissenting from this statement here for the first time. So,
Well, I never
now-
had seen the MOU before, the MOA before.
no, but this recommendation has been in here. Anyway, it doesn't
But now
matter
with
if you
the MOA,
disagree,
that
you
makes a
disagree.
difference to me.
I see. Okay.
Madam Chair, can
Yes.
I suggest perhaps we table this and try to wade through the rest of the report? And then maybe maybe we can revisit this, or some of us can see if there can be compromise language that might satisfy us and allow us to come to consensus.
Sure.
So my motion is.
Okay. I just had one other comment that we're going to delete the signature page at the end of the report because I think the chair can just sign the forward and that will be sufficient.
I think
Okay.
that's consistent with Mr. Wismer's recommendation that I accepted.
Okay. All
Would
right.
you like
do
me
we
to share
need-
the annual report now rather than this?
Sure.
page? Okay, can you see it?
Yes.
And I just went to the page right. Is there a certain page you'd like me to go to?
I don't know. Does anybody else have any comments or can we make a motion to approve everything other than those 2 sections which we've agreed to discuss further?
I so move.
Okay. Any second?
I will second.
Okay. So the motion is approved. Okay. Now we're back to the same issue.
So just to be clear, Madam Chair, we just approved the report absent that section that we were debating.
Right, the 2 sections. Well, actually just the 1 section because the section 3G just states what the facts are. It's section 4B that has a recommendation. So it's the recommendation that's being discussed.
Okay, so.
So maybe we can put those 2 provisions back up and just actually just that 1 provision.
I think it's up, right? Was it in this section?
Yeah,
Or I could pull
No,
up
it's
the-
section 4. Yes, that's the original report. And I guess we should have in front of us the revised one. So it'd be that document I sent you this morning, Crystal.
Okay, let me get that back open.
And as she's putting that up, Madam Chair, let me just offer this.
Mhm.
I tend to think that we're still kind of talking about two different things as we hear those who are concerned about unfair criticism of this practice. And I wonder, and I think perhaps Diane Dosal actually gets this, that the appearance of it to the public is, as you illustrated in your analogy about the law firm, I guess, lead partner being the lead of investigating malpractice. I think everybody gets that analysis. So we're talking about the difference between appearance and what happens in substance. Maybe this process has so many checks and balances that it just is absolutely fair. But the appearance of it is still, if in fact BCSO leads in investigating its officer-involved shootings, that they are in a position to influence that. So I want to make sure we understand the difference between a sensitivity to appearance and the reality that may balance the scales. And so I'm seeing a difference there, and maybe making some alteration to the language in that section 4B1 would satisfy people if we have that compromise.
Well, it's basically it's saying that we're asking the county to change this, to take it to the legislature and change this agreement. And I don't know that we have enough information, or that we should be recommending that to the county.
What information do we need?
Well, does everybody know all the checks and balances, the process? Why we're recommending that they change this because of appearances. We're recommending that the county change legislation because the public has it could appear that there's a conflict of interest.
Correct.
Not that there is a conflict of interest, but we're going to change legislation because it may appear that there is.
The language says consider. The word consider what legislative measures may be taken. It's tentative language. It's just talking about it.
We could change it to be a little more strongly tentative by saying in the second sentence of the second paragraph that's up on the screen, BCC should consider if legislative measures
Should.
are advisable to mandate, and then continue with the rest of this sentence. So we're just now saying the county commission should consider whether it might be advisable to take such action, to take legislative action.
Do they even have any jurisdiction to do that?
Well, if they don't, then they will determine that. I don't know the jurisdiction of the county commission, but we're talking about APD and the BCSO, both of which are within Bernalillo County. So if any agency has jurisdiction, I would assume it would be the county commission, but I don't know. And that's why we say in here that if it's not within their jurisdiction, they can refer it to the appropriate legislative body if there is one.
The county has jurisdiction over health, safety, and welfare in terms of what counties have jurisdiction over, and law enforcement could be under those categories.
Madam Chair, I don't know why I can't find the place to raise my hand, but I apologize if I'm out of order.
Go right ahead.
I think that this is an issue like body worn cameras where the county commission, and I know we have Daniel on, and certainly I'd asked him to comment, but I think the commission probably does not have legislative ability to mandate this of BCSO. And I think that as I look at the language there. It is a recommendation to all these agencies. The appearance of the agency wherein the shooter is employed should not be the lead in investigating. And so when I open up the paper and it says BCO lead agency in investigating its officer involved shooting, you know, my little pea brain is caused to think, wow, that doesn't sound right for that agency to be investigating itself. The practice may be very different. And I don't see why, and maybe somebody can explain to me why somebody out of this multi-agency task force from a different agency can't be the lead in investigating it with the same process that is employed to resolve whether or not there is propriety in the incident itself. And so maybe somebody can explain to me why the APD representative on that multi-agency task force or the Department of Public Safety representative cannot be the lead. It has to be BCSO if it in fact is a BCSO officer involved shooting.
But isn't that part of the problem here, is that not everyone understands the full details and explanation of the investigation and the step-by-step process? I think because not everyone knows it in its entirety, it leaves those questions. And the thing is there's not a straight answer. There are many reasons why that doesn't happen. So I just think that's maybe what we're trying to point out, is that because we don't know that step-by-step process, and it would take not a long time, but it would, you know, take some time to fully understand that, maybe we're not at the point where we should be recommending until we fully understand that process.
Right, I mean, we have several people that signed off on this, several agencies that understand the process better than the committee here does. The public safety, 2 officers from public safety, county manager signed off on it. So the county has signed off on this. They are aware of what happened already. And the sheriff and APD and the DA. So the county is aware of this. They have signed off on this agreement.
I speaking for myself, I believe I do understand the process. I am familiar with law enforcement. I have worked with law enforcement throughout my career. I'll stop there. Thank you.
I think I would respectfully disagree that a member of the public needs to go through an academy to understand that there is not a conflict. I think the appearance of the conflict can be cured by having somebody who has some detachment from the agency involved lead the investigation. I don't know if then that becomes a provision in an MOA where the practicality of it is meted out, is described, but it seems to me the appearance of it is the same. And if you're saying, well, you know, person who just had your loved one killed, you don't understand that there are checks and balances, so you really don't have anything to complain about in this system. I'm in disagreement with that.
Me too.
I
agree
wasn't
with that.
suggesting that the community goes to an academy. I'm not quite sure where that came from. That wasn't my intention to imply that. I just meant as board members, do we all understand, you know, that process if we're going to be making recommendations? That's all I was simply saying. As far as the community goes, I agree. I mean, you know, the perception is one thing, but as board members, do we understand that as we're making these recommendations. And that's the only thing that I was implying. And so having
right.
said that, I thought this was going to be tabled or further discussion, but we came back to it. So I'm just not quite sure where we're at with it, but you know, Madam Chair and Chair, I just, that's all I really had to say. I wasn't trying to imply anybody needs to go to an academy, but it did certainly help to understand some other things.
I think where we're at is that we've approved the annual report other than this one paragraph, this recommendation. And that's why it's still up for discussion.
And the county,
So-
did sign this agreement, the county manager.
Yeah. But that doesn't negate our obligation to give recommendations that we think are needed to the county commission. So,
Yeah, and now we're split like 50-50 on what the
Right.
recommendation should be. So I don't know where we go from there on that.
well, that's why I'm asking if I were to make the change where it would say BC, that the Bernalillo County Commission should consider if legislative measures are advisable, rather than saying should consider what can be done to do this, consider if it's advisable, and then they can go through the process of having hearings. And we don't have any kind of subpoena power or anything like that to have hearings to collect evidence, but the county commission does. So we're not really in a position to research this in the same way that the county commission would be, nor are we legislators. But at least here, what we're proposing is that the county commission consider if this is a advisable course.
Well, I mean, maybe we just should consider if legislative measures be taken, not to mandate anything, to investigate, or I don't know, because then we have mandate that any investigation should happen.
Well, if it's now we'd just be saying they can investigate if it would be advisable to mandate, rather than saying they should figure out a way to do it. They should investigate whether it's advisable.
Madam Chair, this is Michael. I have a whole different suggestion after listening to all sides of this. I've already expressed my concern a little bit, but I think centering on changing legislation or adding legislation may be the wrong thing to do based on everything that we know so far. What if our recommendation were what if we were to say that this perception of the perception of unfairness is out there in the public, and we'll continue to monitor it. Meanwhile, maybe the solution might be for the county who signed off on this MOU to bring all of the players back to the table and discuss this issue of lead agency again, and possibly review or revise the MOU, as opposed to making a recommendation about state legislation. So that's my 2 cents. I still have great concern trying to tell the county to make a legislative recommendation to the state legislature.
Although that's part of our mandate, is to make recommendations to the county commission.
Right, but maybe they
If we
recommend.
deem they're appropriate, obviously.
Well,
Is there any legislation that
is it legislation, or is it the
MOU?
MOU that we're concerned about? I
Right.
think it's the MOU, and since they're a party to it, they may have the ability and influence to bring the players back together and revisit this based on input from the SOARB board that there is a perception of unfairness.
So, Madam Chair, what if we stop short of the legislation then and just said the Bernalillo County Commission should consider this issue as, and we could even reflect the split of this board, that certain members of the board think that it's appropriate, but certain members are bothered by the perception that the BCSO is leading the investigation of its own officer-involved shooting.
All right, I can redraft some language. I can't probably do it right now, but I can do it,
I can
when we're
certainly help with
done.
it. I see Under Sheriff Corn has his hand up too.
Oh, please.
Yeah, sorry, I must have gotten a little clumsy with that, but just adding again my 2 cents here, but the dealing with perceptions is best dealt with by educating. And in this case, I see a lot of discussion about perceptions of lead investigative agency or officer-involved shootings being the agency that basically is involved with the shooting. There are some provisions in that MOU, and I encourage you folks to go through and look at it a little bit closer, and that assure that quality, give that quality assurance. And the idea behind the MOU too was really resource sharing, and it's what I consider a pretty pure agreement between agencies, so that no one agency is stuck with utilizing all their resources to facilitate these investigations. The first position, or the primary agency involved in these investigations, is really the idea behind having that agency is named as the primary or lead agency, is just because their officer is directly involved in the shooting, and their SOPs, there's intricacies within their SOPs, within their chain of command, within their communication equipment, within their dispatch processes, within gathering recordings and things like that, that can only really be facilitated by that lead agency. And so I hope that offers a little bit of an explanation. Of course, I'm just sharing information because it's perception here that I want to deal with, and if there's any perception out there that I can help educate someone on, or if I can't do it, I'll find somebody who can within our organization, or maybe within the multi-agency task force that can help educate people on this to change their perception. Perceptions are changed by educating and communicating. So I just offer that my 2 cents there. Thank you.
Under Sheriff Corn, this is Debbie Strongen. I'm wondering if you could comment on whether you think that changing this rule so as to change the public perception would be, in essence, helpful to BCSO. I know that the sheriff's office in general is very sensitive to what's perceived as unfairness, especially in the media, to coverage of BCSO. And by changing the rule so that that the agency from which the shooter came is not the agency leading the investigation, it would eliminate, the newspaper article where it starts out with BCSO is investigating itself, which is not going to change, under this current MOA. And yes, there are some circumstances where the lead agency would be a different agency than the shooter's agency, but that's not the general rule under the MOA. So I'm just wondering if you can see in any way that this could be helpful to the public perception of BCSO.
You're asking me, and I
Yeah.
don't think I think there's very few things that we could do to guide the media to change perceptions. I think ultimately it's our responsibility to put the information out factually, and there are quality assurances in place, and ultimately, all officer and deputy involved students get referred to the district attorney for consideration for prosecution, and whether the investigation is being facilitated or led by the agency. I don't think it would make much difference. But your recommendations and will be taken into advisement and consideration, no matter what you decide.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
may I then ask Under Sheriff Corrin what he takes away from Ms. Maestas's comments? Not necessarily the press. We understand that you may sense a bias there, but someone who has gone through the process, who has actually felt that there was a conflict, what do you, or what does the agency take away from that comment?
And I do recall some comment from Ms. Maestas about that, and I think it might be again something that we could educate Ms. Maestas on, and I'm not we all fall victim to our own ignorance at times, and I've done it myself where I believe and I think one way until I look a little further and find out some what checks and balances and quality assurances are in place. I come to find out that I know the perception is there based on from what Ms. Maestas had informed me about, but I think our best approach is to try to best to educate people. If there's a forum which to do that, I'm willing to entertain, and I also think that some of these questions could be addressed also to other stakeholders on the metro area task force and ultimately the district attorney to see what their input would be. That you could actually look at your as including in that recommendation. I can tell you that I've been on a number of deputy involved shootings that investigations have seen, and there's quite a few stakeholders looking over your shoulder, and quality assurance takes place to include the DA's office, and it's not it's just these men and women taking an oath of office, just like an attorney is taking their oath, and nobody wants to jeopardize their profession because of somebody else's mistake. And I have confidence in this approach and this system of investigations. Perception wise, I can't always pacify everyone's perceptions based on a few words in an output journal. I'm not going to be able to do that. It's not realistic, and we'll be chasing our tails every article.
Okay, well, I think we've probably covered the range of views on this committee, so I'm not sure what we're at right now, but I'm just not sure, because we weren't in here making a recommendation to the sheriff's office to do this. We were making the recommendation to the Bernalillo County Commission. Should we just take out that recommendation? Should we soften the language. So just say that we think that the Bernalillo County Commission should look into this issue and decide, if further action is warranted, and whether that be legislative, amending the MOA, educating the public, or some other remedy. Any comments on that?
Yeah, I think something needs to come to a vote, Madam Chair, and I would move your previous language that we step back from consideration of the legislation and say that the Bernalillo County Commission should consider what measures need to be taken to remedy this appearance of a conflict. And that would be my motion.
I second it.
So is my understanding that we're taking out the legislative language?
Correct.
Yeah.
I'll agree with that.
Okay. Okay, let's just ask, does anybody disagree with that?
I don't necessarily, this is Michael, I don't necessarily disagree, but I would like the option of providing a minority view, if that is acceptable to the rest.
Yeah, I'm not, your minority view being that it would not be advisable for the commission to consider the issue?
Yes, yes, I would just like to reread the MOU and approach it from the MOU's perspective of where I think they may need to improve the MOU in the future revisions of it. I just have a problem telling the Bernalillo County Commission that they need to say who is the lead in officer-involved shootings. So,
Well, we're not, Mike, we're not saying that anymore. What we're just saying is that we are advising or recommending that the Bernalillo County Commission consider what measures, if any, can be taken or should be taken or are advisable to be taken to address this this conflict of interest issue. I mean, I
The
don't have
perception of.
the perception, right?
Perception or appearance. Madam Chair, may I offer this? I think under our rules, Mr. Wismer is permitted to do that. Perhaps if you and I rewrite that and get it out to everybody, and we set a time limit on when these individual comments can come in, we can move on then with the voted on report. And people can indicate individually, their displeasure or affirmance of that language.
I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Okay, let me just ask this. If we send this out within the next hour after we adjourn this meeting, would everybody have time to get back to us today on this with
Yes.
either agreement or suggested changes? And if you want to record a dissent, the contents of that dissent. Is there anyone who would not be able to
I have an
work in that
appointment.
time?
I have an appointment after this meeting, but I would be able to get comment back to you by 5 p.m. Would that be okay?
That would be fine with me. Judge
And
Jewell, does that work for you?
That
Okay.
works for me.
Okay, so we'll proceed on those lines. And other than that, this is in final form. And I guess we can make arrangements through Crystal for Judge Jewell to sign this. And I'm not sure what exactly the distribution process is, but
I'm sure staff can help us with
Yeah.
that, Debbie. So I don't think we, as a committee, have to discuss distribution. I think we just want to make sure, as you and Debbie Dodge were concerned about previously, that this wears the imprimatur of the SOARB process for agreement as I signed this. And so I think we can assume the SOARB is what we have in front of us here on this screen. And as I'm understanding, we have consensus that this is the report with some modification that we've just discussed coming in by 5 o'clock, which would include the language that you've just recited and perhaps some dissenting view by Mr. Wismer. Is that correct, everyone?
And Mr. Chair, I would just like to add, and I want to reaffirm something I said at the beginning, despite our disagreement on some of the language, I think that Ms. Strongen has done an outstanding job in putting this together for all of us. And I, for one, really appreciate her efforts.
I want to affirm that, and if you would applaud with me. Debbie, you've just done a tremendous job on this. Thank you.
Yeah, she's done a lot of work.
well, thank you very much, but I look at this as a group effort, and Debbie Dodge has certainly done work on this, and everybody has had some input. So, you know, this is just a record of what we've all done cooperatively during the past year. So,
Well,
thank
your
you, but
your
it's-
modesty is appreciated, but not accepted. So,
All right,
and thank
so-
you, Crystal, for putting the agenda back up. If I might, Debbie, I'll reassume the chair.
Please do.
And we'll move to suggestions for discussion at the next board meeting. I know Debbie Strongen and I had some conversation about that, and certainly we need to have a discussion about where we need to be going in the future. But the chair will certainly entertain your suggestions for what needs to be on the next board meeting agenda.
Mr. Chairman, this is Michael. In the last meeting we had, I was asked to see if we could get the chief of police from Los Alamos and perhaps Under Sheriff Covington to discuss their respective views about Kalia. And I have confirmed that both are willing to do that on our next meeting, if that is acceptable to you for an agenda item for the January meeting.
And what amount of time do you intend to take with that, Mr. Wismer?
Probably 10 minutes or so. It's really each one giving their brief overview of their experience with Kalia, and then their pros and cons, and then questions from the board, and that's about it.
Okay. Any objection? Crystal, let's go ahead then and add that to January's agenda. You know, we thank Debbie Strongen, and to a lesser degree, those that she's mentioned in compiling this report. But it seems to me, I know I expressed a concern to Ms. Strongen. You know, we've lost people along the way, and I haven't had full feedback from those people. But I want to make sure that you all are satisfied with your volunteer experience. And so if we need to talk about what we need to do as a board to make sure that this operation, this SOARB, is viable, is giving what we think the county commission charged us to get, then we need to entertain that discussion as well. And so I guess I'm envisioning some grassroots discussion about whether this is fulfilling you all in your most appreciated volunteerism.
I don't know how to raise my hand on this thing today, but I mean, somehow we have to get the board to, they wanted this board to exist, but they're not doing their job in appointing any more members to this board. So maybe we need to address that.
Okay.
It's Debbie Strongen. I just want to point out that that is one of the recommendations that we have to the commission in the report,
Okay,
that there
yeah,
should always be a full complement of 9 board members.
right.
And
And-
one, I
and-
mean,
and-
one is just recent that left, but 2 others have been longstanding.
And maybe
And
you
there's-
want to, say, Jewel, get out there and rattle the cage a little bit. Public relations is one thing, addressing the commission another, but I think we ought to have that discussion if there's something that I need to do or that we need to do to make sure that we're fully representative. I want to make sure we do that.
Got it. And Mr. Chairman, this is Michael again. Can we also add for the agenda in January, a very quick vote on the final recommendation on enhanced availability, accessibility of crime statistics?
Deb, I think that found its way into the report. And so our vote on the
Yes.
report is actually confirmation of that recommendation. If I am incorrect, if anybody wants to state otherwise, please do so now, or as we say in weddings, forever hold your peace. Okay, so Mr. Wismer, I think you have what you want. If you think we need something further, I'm willing to put it on the agenda.
Well, if you're willing to sign the recommendation as our representative saying that we all agree with this, then I'm happy. I can just forward it to Crystal and she can do the signature process.
Okay, so now is there understanding from everybody what we're talking about here? Okay. So the recommendation basically is to bring the statistical release of information into consistency with that of APD. And so essentially by my signature on the report, that is a recommendation that we're making to the BCSO. I think we have comfort with that
And sorry
Yes.
to interrupt. I just wanted to say under your board discussion about board member fulfillment, did you want to also include like a vote on a new vice chair?
Yes. Thank you. Or chair for that matter. I think people are sick of me.
You want to
I
just do a
doubt
vote
that.
on both?
I think there should probably, and I don't know, is this included in our bylaws, Mike? Do we vote
Yes.
annually on the chair or?
Yeah, yes, we should
So we
do
probably
that,
ought to.
chair and vice chair.
Yeah. Any other items that we should take up at the next board meeting?
Do we know if that's going to be in person or virtual?
So far,
Virtual.
I haven't heard anything about in-person or hybrid. So I'm thinking it's gonna be virtual in January still.
Okay,
I'm just waiting for word
Virtual
on.
until we hear otherwise, and we'll certainly give some lead time before we plan on meeting in person. This virus tends to go in directions that we cannot safely contemplate. So I think we're just going to have to indulge it until it's indicated that it's by I guess by the county that it's safe for us to meet in person. With that, the next board meeting is scheduled for January 14th at 11 a.m.
And sorry, Judge, I just wanted to state too, do you want me to put an item for discussing the annual report after given to the commission?
Yeah, certainly. And I envision that would be encompassed in where we go from here.
Okay.
I don't know, and you and Daniel can help me. If we're expecting anything back from the commission, but certainly the robust discussion that we've had around the recommendation makes me think that we definitely need to envision where we're going and what we're doing. So yes. Anything else? Chair will then entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Debbie Strongen.
Debbie Dodge will second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you for a great year. Everybody have great holidays. And
Thank you.
we'll get this report in and try anew in 2022. So good day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
good weekend.
Happy
Happy holidays,
Happy
everyone.
holidays.